In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Hey, hey, warrior saints. It was a regular occurrence in the Abdullah household that we would just go with our dad wherever he was going. That meant hospital visits. We got to carry the briefcase. When he would go to visit people in their house and bless their homes, we got to carry the briefcase. And if both of us went, one carried the briefcase and one the water sprinkler. And that was the key job, was if you got to carry the water sprinkler. It was a big deal. But anytime he was going places, he took us with him. And on all of these hospital visits, I love my dad, was so corny. His dad jokes out-dadded any and all dad jokes that could ever dad joke. He was masterful, and he always laughed at his own jokes and would say, and he still says it to this day, I always laugh at my jokes, that way I know someone's laughing. Every time we would go visit someone in the hospital together, he had his tagline at the end. Whether a knee replacement or a hip replacement or open heart surgery, it didn't matter. As he was leaving the hospital room, he would always look at the person and he would say to them, now remember, no roller skating. So when I graduated from seminary and was working in a parish, I was asked to go visit someone who had recently had a hip replaced. And I went to the hospital and I sat with them, and I turned as I was walking out of the room. And I turned back and I couldn't catch the words from coming out of my mouth. Remember, no roller skating. I was flabbergasted. I had made fun of my dad for so many years for doing this same cheesy line, for making this same line. And then as soon as I leave someone's hospital room, no roller skating. The reality is, brothers and sisters, that no matter how we try to do it, we can't not become our parents. We're all destined to become like our parents in some form or another. Our formative years are spent standing with them, by their side, learning from them, learning from their actions, learning also from their inactions. In the same way, Christ is like his parents, taking from his father godliness and from his mother a human form. We heard in this morning's reading an explanation called the Synaxarion for the day, that today ends kind of the period that we celebrate Christmas. Today is the last stop on that celebration of Christ's birth. And it makes sense. What do we celebrate today? We celebrate the presentation of Christ in the temple, the feast that our modern day churching is modeled after, where the mother comes and offers her child to God. But it's a funny thing to see the mother of God offering her child to God. But as we hear in the hymns and in this morning's gospel, Christ comes under the law. Christ, who is described as the master of the law. Christ, who by very nature is God and therefore is the giver of the law, in order that he might fulfill that law which he gave. That law which was explained throughout the entirety of the Old Testament has to himself come under that very law so that it might be fulfilled, becoming everything that it means to be a human being, becoming everything that it means to be us, so that he might teach us what it means to be human. And where does that moment happen? Where does he fulfill that law? Finally, in the culmination of all things, on the cross. That is Christ's priesthood. That is Christ's fulfilling of the law. It is a priesthood of self-sacrifice that shows and finishes itself, reveals itself, shows us completely what it means to be us by his self-emptying crucifixion. So what does that mean for us? At St. George, we call that crucifixional living. And that brings us to today's practical point, and there is only one. Last week we talked about hurried. Father Chris talked about how busy we always are. Are we too busy to ourselves come under the law? Are we too busy to be modeled after he who gave the law and comes under it? We are not. So we have to train ourselves to follow that message. We have to train ourselves to be crucifixional in the very way that Christ shows himself to be crucifixional. And the way that we do that is simple. Take 5 minutes at the end of every single day and reflect. Look back on your day. Look back on those moments where you maybe could have been crucifixional and maybe we weren't, and we all have those. Look back on those moments where we were crucifixional. We have those too. Look back on those moments that we didn't even recognize were anything, and see in your day where we could have offered ourselves to someone else. Reflect. And as time goes on, and as we get better and more tuned in to what is going on, as we train ourselves, those moments don't pass us by. Those moments become the very moments that define our lives. May our great God, who loved mankind, who came under the law, who gave us the law, give us the strength that we might follow him on the path to the cross. Amen.